Greetings, my name is Worst, and this will be the first video of hopefully many in a series called Worst Reviews. And the name Worst Reviews is because my name is Worst, and I will be reviewing ships. Mostly premium ships, but I can do also Tech 3 ships in the future, hopefully. Now, the first ship that we are going to be talking about here is the Tromp. Now, what is the Tromp? Well, Tromp is a premium Dutch destroyer that can be obtained in the armory for coal. The armor layout of this destroyer is actually nothing to brag about. It has standard DD armor all around, although it does have vital ship armor. And this is quite important because the armor inside of the ship is actually thicker than the armor on the outside. So it means that cruisers AP will actually arm in this destroyer, dealing more damage than usual. And also, of course, the AP shells that usually would have, gone through the ship or through a normal destroyer, it won't happen on this destroyer. So it gets destroyed by AP very easily, and this is one of the quickest way that you can use to actually destroy a Tromp, shooting AP at its broadside. If you are a destroyer or a cruiser, of course. So survivability wise, this destroyer is quite healthy. It has a base HP of 24,500 HP, but you should get it up to 28,000 with Survivability Expert. DPM wise, this destroyer is not that great. It barely sits under Grozovoy in terms of DPM, and it is slightly above than Sommers. So really, the DPM is not great on the Tromp. But it does have some hefty 150mm guns that have a pretty big salvo weight. Actually, it's the same as Shimakaze. Also, the ballistics of these shells are actually quite good. And talking about ballistics, the AP shells are also good. Of course, they are not Elbing good, but they are slightly better than Ragnar, penetration-wise. And this means that you will be able to Citadel cruisers at shorter ranges with these. And also you will be able to Citadel very light cruisers at longer distances, like 10 kilometers. For example, you can Citadel Minotaur, Brisbane, and Colbert at exactly 10 kilometers and below. Also, the dispersion of these guns is quite good. It's decent. You can actually, since you have this very good ballistics, you can engage other destroyers at longer ranges and actually not necessarily, although your DPM is actually quite bad, your ballistics will help you to actually mitigate this issue, and you will be able to overpower most of the enemy destroyers at longer ranges. Torpedoes wise, there is nothing special. This thing has 6 torpedoes in total, 3 per side. The damage is 15,000. The speed is good, and they reload quite fast. And they also have quite good concealment. This is obviously not the main armament of the destroyer, but these torpedoes will be very handy. Just because of, these are torps. And they actually, the damage is not that terrible. 15,000 is not the best ever, but it is not the worst. And also the torpedo speed is actually quite nice. Of course, these torpedoes are not buffed in any way whatsoever, because you kinda don't need to. But these torpedoes by themselves, with this reload, are actually quite decent. They're a decent armament. The airstrikes on this boat are actually the main armament. Not the guns, not the torpedoes, but the airstrikes. These airstrikes are quite different compared to the Howden Liu, and the reason is that these planes actually take 11 seconds, so the bombs to land take 11 seconds, and the reload of a single airstrike is base 60 seconds, although that will, should be improved down to 48. You can stock up to 2 available flights, and the number of aircraft in the attacking flight is 12. Now this is quite important, because you have to imagine that every single plane in this flight has 6 bombs. Okay, it has 6 bombs. So these are basically 72 bombs falling onto a target, and each bomb has 23% fire chance and pans 20 millimeters. So this means that this armament makes the Tromp a great fire starter. Oh, and of course it has a range of 10 kilometers. So this armament makes the Tromp an absolute beast at making fires and in burning damacons. And this is this is how the Tromp deals most of the damage. Through burning damacons, creating fires and floods. Now let's talk about a bit of the ASW and AA. I'm putting these together because they are quite terrible. So the depth charges are honestly terrible. You have only 6 depth charges in a charge, although this may seem quite strange, but every single time you press the G button, you will release 6 bombs. And these bombs deal 2,300 damage each, so they are not great. And they reload in 40 seconds as well, so they are not exactly great. And you also have to remember that you are a destroyer, so you will drop the bombs directly on top of the submarine. So this is one of the worst ASW armaments ever. AA defense-wise, this thing is quite bad at that one too. The AA is borderline useless. And the reason is, because it has 3.5 kilometers of range. You heard me right. 3.5 kilometers of range is actually kinda useless. You cannot deter any CV whatsoever. And the only decent thing about this AA is that it has 274 damage per second on the medium range AA, which is nothing because this radius is 1.5 kilometers big, and then you have the short range AA that will kick in, that deals 51 damage per second. So that's actually kind of stupid. So the AA is absolutely useless. There is actually no flak. And yeah, actually, kind of very, very, very bad AA. So speed and maneuverability wise, this thing is quite atrocious. This is one of the slowest destroyers, going at a maximum of 33.5 knots. Although you can use speed flag, and you can go up to 35.2. And then we'll have to talk about the engine boost, but I'll do that later. And maneuverability wise, this thing is also quite bad. The rudder shift isn't the best thing ever, but I have seen worse. It sits at 5.3 seconds, but the turning circle radius is 720 meters. It has basically like Russian handling, which is, as you may know, not great at all. Concealment-wise, this destroyer is not even all that bad. This thing is a base concealment of 7.3 kilometers, and you can get it down with, you know, with the module and with the captain's skill, you can get it down to 5.9 kilometers. Detectability by air is actually 3.0 kilometers, so, you know, 3 kilometers, and it's, you know, you barely sit in your AA range, which is actually kind of funny. So let's talk about the consumables. So this thing has, well, of course, 3 consumables. The first one is the damage control party. That is normal. This is standard Damacon. Standard DD Damacon lasts for 5 seconds. Reloads in 38. Then you have the engine boost. Now this is not your normal engine boost. This is a European engine boost. And this is very important because this engine boost will save you most of the times. For example, when you're engaging or with guns, or like when you have to dodge a torpedo, you have to use this. I mean, you have to. If you think that you cannot dodge the torpedo normally, you have to use this engine boost. This is a very good engine boost. It gives you a 25% maximum speed, and it lasts for a minute, for 60 seconds. But I did put the engine boost modification 1, and that makes it go up to 78 seconds of consumable action time. The cooldown is 95, so not that big of a deal. So very important consumable for sure. And then you have the defensive AA fire, def AA. This is kind of, I mean, this is useless because your AA is already useless. It's like polishing a turd, really. It's bad. I mean, this is the worst consumable ever. You know, you use it because you're being attacked by a CV, but really it does basically nothing. It's like a copium or a placebo pill, I guess. It does basically nothing for the AA that you have now. It's kind of terrible. So, Tromp. My overall experience with the Tromp has been quite nice. I like it quite a bit. In my opinion, it's a very fun destroyer. It's a great farmer. It deals like a lot of damage over time with this simple technique that you have to, I guess, master a bit, where you drop an airstrike, then you let the enemy Damacon the fire, and then you drop another one, and then, you know, hopefully it's gonna be a permafire. 90% of the time, 99% of the times you're gonna proc permafire on the guy. Of course, you have to wait for that damage control to end, that is. But Tromp has some limitations. It cannot sustain knife fights against other destroyers. Fighting at close ranges is kinda prohibited. Your gun angles are quite bad, and your DPM is definitely not there. So fighting at close ranges, it's detrimental. You don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is that you want to help the destroyer that is, you know, capping or spotting, and you want to help your friendly destroyer to kill the enemy destroyer. That is what you want to do. You are a support DD at the beginning of the game, in the early game, Then middle to late game, if the enemy destroyer has been taken out, then you can go for farming. Or you can go for farming even if the destroyer has not taken out, but it depends if the enemy team is pushing or not. The airstrikes are, useful on any target. If you actually can strike destroyers that are pushing in or like that are spotted, that's that's great. Although it's kind of difficult. Although I have found that it's quite easy to actually nail destroyers that are spamming in smoke, or even some other cruisers, that is, or destroyers that are behind islands. I found this boat actually very useful to counter ships such like Minotaur, Brisbane, Colbert, simply because these ships tend to stay behind islands. Now, not usually the Colbert, but I have seen like people in super light cruisers staying behind islands. For example, even like in Austin, I remember. And I just dropped the airstrikes on them and I dealt full damage because these bombs actually do pen. They penetrate the deck of super light cruisers. So you actually, although you take quite a decent amount of damage from any sort of cruiser, you are a quite decent tool at dealing with cruisers, dealing with super light cruisers. So this is odd. And also, of course, you have the guns that you can use to Citadel cruisers at less than 10 kilometers and super lights at like 10 kilometers. But yeah, this thing is a great farmer. Like I said, it farms a lot of damage with the fires and floods because the torpedoes are, you don't have that many of them, but they do reload quite fast, so you better spam those in the water. As soon as you have them reloaded, you have to throw them because they're kind of good. They're not bad. Now I'm going to be showing my build that I have for the Tromp, and I will be suggesting some options that you can do. Now, again, before we do that, I just want to say that this destroyer is sadly not an independent destroyer. Like I said, you always need some kind of support. You cannot engage another destroyer alone, just simply because your DPM is so bad that like something like a gearing will be able to outgun you. If the enemy destroyer is smart, it will be able, it will load AP and actually absolutely demolish you with full pens. It's gonna happen. Eventually. So let's go at the build. I'm gonna put an image of the build that I have, and the only thing I mean you really could change about this is the Fearless Brawler. You could change Fearless Brawler for main battery and AA Expert. If you do this, you basically sacrifice 10% of your DPM to get 20% more range. Now this is useful because it opens up like more ways to deal damage, and you can farm damage on cruisers and battleships at longer distances. But you will lose your flexibility against destroyers at closer ranges, right? Because the only way that Tromp can actually destroy a DD at close range is if the Tromp has a lot of HP to spare, right? Since it's a very healthy destroyer, the only way that you have to like kill a DD at closer ranges is if you have your HP still intact, right? And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not a very flexible destroyer in close range gunfights. I have to admit that. So yeah, you could put main battery and AA expert instead of Furious Brawler, or I mean, also you could remove in the fourth module slot. You can remove airstrike modification 1 to go for proportion modification 1. Now, what does this mean? It means that you will lose 12 seconds of your airstrike. So basically, it goes from 48 seconds to 60, you know, the base reload. But you will be able to accelerate faster. So if you think that you if you eat torpedoes a lot in this destroyer and you just can't wrap your head around it, then I guess swap airstrike for prop mod, and that should be alright. Well, thank you guys for listening in. I'll be posting more videos soon, hopefully, when my exams are done. And yeah, see you next time, I guess.